So Mike asked you to come and speak about prayer, Scott. So why am I here?
Mike asked me. I said, quite honestly, Misty would be much better at that than I would. And then I said to Mike, it's like, how about Misty and I do it together and we can tag team it? And Mike said, great. I thought I better ask Misty. So you agreed to do it without actually agreeing to do it. But seriously, Misty is much. We had this thing last night where she said, "Don't you dare say that," and it's like, Misty is better at praying than I am, because I think, and I guess that's why I said no to Mike in the beginning, because it's like I don't think I'm very good at prayer. Honestly, it's like if you were to line, you know that thing on the first season of Traitors where they kind of made them all line up in a row and said who's going to win and who's the best and who's the worst. I'd be tucking myself down at the far end, going, I'm really not very good at this, but I try. So you're here to make me look good, which is your job in life anyway, isn't it?
Do you want to say who we are? Mike said.
Oh, sorry. I'm Scot. We've lived in Sheffield for the last, it's 18 months or so now.
Nearly
We
2
used to
years,
live here back in the 90s. My parents' family are all from here. And anything else? Oh, I work for a charity. I've worked in the kind of Christian charity sector for the last 15 or so years. That's what I do. Yeah,
we have 2 adult children and 1 grandson who's 2.5. So you may see us running around with a small person occasionally. That's us, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, so back to me then. So we're going to attempt a sort of podcast-style conversation, so bear with us if it doesn't really work.
So sorry, I was supposed to say that, wasn't I? We thought we'd do this to kind of just invite you in to listen to a conversation, rather than us trying to project on you what we think about prayer. The other thing Misty's going to be really good at is holding me accountable in this space. Misty knows me. We've been married for 30 years. I can't get away with half-truths here.
No. So I'm going to throw this back to you, Scott. What is prayer to you?
I think first and foremost, when I first became a Christian for the first few years, I thought of prayer as like that fruit machine thing where you keep chucking in the prayers at the top and eventually you're going to get the reward coming out the bottom. It's like this is, or maybe even a vending machine would be a bit better analogy. It's like I put my prayer in here and I expect my can of Coke to come out the bottom, and God is wonderful, and sometimes that happens, but the reason why that happens is because he loves us and wants a conversation with us, rather than I've put my prayer in and I'm getting something out the bottom. So I think first and foremost it's a conversation, isn't it? It's about following the invitation of God, partnering with Jesus. I think my best prayers are just where I'm having a conversation with God. And you know that thing where I I've just got the sense of excitement from God about something. And it can be about a person, about a place. Yesterday it was about the joy of being in the peaks. And you just get this rise of joy that's coming from God. So conversation. I think also it's the thing that takes me beyond myself. You get to the... I'm sure we all have very stressful jobs, or stressful situations in our lives, and we get to a place where it's like, I've given everything I can to this, and now all I've got left is a groan and a sigh, and that's kind of where it takes me into a deeper space with God when I've just run out of words. There's something in in the kind of charity sector I'm in that I hear quite a lot is where people say, all we can do is pray. You heard that phrase, all we can do is pray. I just don't think it's true 90% of the time, honestly. There's 90% of the time there's something you can do. It's like, whether that's kind of just like caring for someone individually, taking act, like the justice stuff we're doing at Philly, justice prayer. But that doesn't stop in the prayer room, right? You're doing stuff out on the streets, you're meeting with people and changing the world and like this. But there is sorry, I'm going... It's supposed to be a conversation. This is how conversations work in our house. you get so the phrase "all you can do is pray" is wrong a lot of the time. But all I can do now is pray is the best thing in the world. It's like I have done everything I possibly can, and now it's all down to you, God. So it's all that end of myself.
Yeah.
Conversation. What about you?
I like what you said about that kind of deep connection. I always go back to that verse in the Psalm 42, deep calls to deep. And for me, that's what prayer is. It's, I've been a Christian since I was 7, so lots of different types of prayer along the years, and prayers meant different things. But for me, the best, if that's the right word, place of prayer is around when I feel as though I am sort of communing with the Trinity, if that's not heretical, that sort of dance with the Trinity, that moment of togetherness where you feel God is breathing into you, you're breathing him in and breathing out. But it's also about moments of submission. It's about moments of invitation, as you say. But what I don't feel it is for me is transactional, like you described in the beginning. Prayer is not a transaction. It's not something I do. It's something I have the invitation to join in with, I think.
Yeah, I've written something that just that is catching the breath of God. Like you catch the breath of God in the place of prayer, and then you go and, like just as you said, you breathe it out into the world, kind of coming out of that.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? What does that look like? What does that look like for you in your everyday? One of the things that we when we were talking about doing this together, it's like one of the reasons we wanted to do this was to like compare our different styles, because we pray very differently, right? And I said, it's like, so I do this, I pray this way, and you pray at your 6 a.m. in your prayer chair, which you took exception to.
Yeah, I mean, I do get up early every day. I think when we had small kids, I got up earlier and earlier just to have some silence and quiet and time with God before the mayhem began. And it's sort of formed into a habit. It's something I saw my mum doing. My mum still does that. She rises early. So for me, that's an important part of my practice. But I am in no way sitting there for half an hour, on my knees praying to God. That's not necessarily what it looks like. It looks like all sorts of different things in that space. It looks like I'm journaling. Maybe I've woken up with some frustrations and I'm writing it all down to God. Or maybe I'm reading the Bible and something in the scripture jumps out, and that kind of, I pray off the back of that, use that as a springboard into prayer. Sometimes I'm distracted by my phone, and so I try and be off-grid and put it in the other room. But sometimes that sparks something. It reminds me about a person or something, and I then sparked into prayer. So there is that early morning, and I feel for me it's such a habit now that if I don't get that time, I don't feel like I've set my day up straight. Yeah. But it's more than that. It's that Brother Lawrence, when you're washing up or when you're sweeping the floor, it's those moments are also what it looks like practically. I love that story of John Wesley's mum she had so many kids running around, never a chance to pray. She used to put a tea towel on her head. Mummy's got the tea towel on her head, she's praying, and you didn't disturb her, so I really love that one. But yeah, what about you? What does it look like?
So this is where we are different. I have no patience, and maybe I do, kind of just that, the idea of sitting and praying for even 20 minutes. I just get so fidgety. I can't sit still, or something would just distract me. So I am not good at that. Where I pray at my best is out on a run. I like running and praying. There's several things in that. There's just the continuation, just the plodding. It's like step by step by step by step, and just continuing to talk to God about that. I think it's also a space where I get to talk to God about some of the stuff that's really getting to me, and without distraction, because my distraction is my running, and it's going to just keep me going like that. I tend to do a long run once a year that's like my retreat, which is a multi-day, like 100-miler thing, and I'll often have little cards printed with people's names on, and every mile that goes by I'll pick a new name out and pray for them for that mile. But that's about kind of getting away from that distractions. I could not sit still for half an hour and pray. I can't sit still in here, by the way, if you've noticed. It's just wandering around. I find that when we had all the food bank stuff in here, that was like really good for me, because I could just wander around and just pray a blessing over all the cans of beans and pot noodles and stuff.
One thing that we do enjoy as a kind of a method of prayer together is a bit of liturgy, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We only really sort of got into it in the last maybe 15 years or so.
The last 15 years.
Yeah, I've been a Christian 45 years. That sounds like a short period of time. But we're not very good at praying together, are we? But liturgy
That
is
brings
something
us
that,
together, right?
that helps us. So
Yeah.
we do pray together in those moments of somebody sends a message saying something terrible has happened, and we stop everything we're doing and we pray. Or we've been through seasons of praying with the kids in the morning when they were younger, using Northumberland morning prayers and those kind of things. So we found those things helpful together.
So we did that for like 5 years. Northumbria community are brilliant. So every morning for 5 years, we would, and we often had people with us, we'd get up and pray those liturgical prayers every day. And it's beautiful the way that kind of just becomes part of you, right? Yeah. And also off the back of that, I really appreciate like little rosaries. So I've got a little Orthodox rosary that helps me focus. Again, that's kind of that distraction thing that I'm just clicking around. It's like there's 33 beads in an Orthodox rosary, and I'll either be praying the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner, or just Lord, have mercy, or just picking names. It's like just a different name each one. So I like that's a nice tool for me.
Yeah. So have you ever had a time when you couldn't pray? Or you didn't know how to pray?
Oh, often I don't know how to pray. Often, so there's a lot of stuff that comes up at work, and you just like, I can't comprehend what has happened here. I work in a Christian human rights charity, so we see the worst of humanity, and often that just becomes a Lord have mercy, just Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. I think there's you might talk about it as well, but there was a time when one of our kids was really quite ill, and we were out on mission in Europe at the time, in the middle of nowhere, and that all happened, but after that I found that it's not that I couldn't pray, I just got to a point where I didn't trust God for about a year. So it was like, I likened it to standing outside a cave, where God is in the cave and God is fierce and awesome and creates everything, but I didn't want to get close to him because I didn't trust him anymore.
Yeah, it was difficult for a while to sing those songs of take me anywhere, I'll go anywhere, I'll do anything. Yeah, you give and take away, that was hard. Thankfully, our son is fine, by the way.
Yeah.
But yes, I think prayer goes in seasons like that, doesn't it? And for me, I can remember a horrific moment with our son where we just didn't know what was happening. He'd had fits, he was floppy, and we were in the back of somebody's car in Bulgaria because that was the quickest way to get to the hospital. Apparently, ambulances would take ages. And I can remember just screaming, to Jesus, 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 because you just don't know what's going to happen. So you have those moments. And then in complete contrast, as part, we lived in Germany for a year as part of our travels, and for various reasons, I ended up in a state of depression. And we came back to the UK, and I'd get up in the morning to have my time, my 6 a.m. time, and I just didn't know how to pray. So I don't know how to pray, and I spoke to a really good friend of mine, and she said, the fact that you are turning up and you are sitting there, even if you are not saying anything, even if you're not hearing anything, even if you're not reading anything, the fact that you are turning up means that you are showing God that you are connecting. That in itself is a prayer, and that really transformed that season for me. So yes, different seasons are different things, and then sometimes there's invitations to pray, aren't there? Have you ever felt a sort of invitation, God inviting you to join him in prayer?
Yeah, often, I guess, because that's conversation, right? So
yeah.
It's like, just like yesterday, running in the peaks, and God there is an invitation, it's like, which can just be, look at this.
Yeah.
It's like, look how cool that is.
Yeah.
And it's just, thank you, Jesus. Other times, like I've had it here where I wander off again, and I found myself sat in the car park and just praying over all the buildings and just getting a sense of like God's vision for this place, what he wants to do with people here, and how beautiful this place is. And I've actually been distracted is quite good, isn't it? Because you do get to follow the invitation of God. We had that when we were traveling around a lot, right?
Yeah,
it was like just that distraction. Let's allow us. We'll talk about it in a minute, but we were traveling through Europe in a very slow camper van. And
why don't you tell the story and then you can tell the...
Okay. No, I won't. I'll come back to that. 'Cause, but just allow yourself to be distracted. If there's a place name or something, just go and do that.
Yeah. So one kind of invitation to pray that we had was when we were in Torquay. I'm going to pass back to you. That's the alarm. That's 15 minutes. He said we could have 20, so it's all right.
Oh yeah. So I guess one of the things we should talk about is Misty and I have been part of the 24/7 prayer movement, which started down in Chichester. Was that 25 years ago now?
Yeah.
So we were part of we went to the first prayer rooms. We were part of the cultural shift thing in Southampton, where 24/7 prayer was really birthed. Lovely to hear Lectio 365 get a shout out this morning. That's a 24/7.
He would be very pleased.
I'll let him know. I'll see him later. But we turned up at this place where 24/7 prayer was first being talked about, and we signed our church up to take a 7-day, 24-hour period of prayer. And at the time, our church was 20 people. We were church planting into Torquay, and we just took it back as a challenge. It's like, we're going to pray, and we're going to pray because we're not very good at it, and but we want to be close to God. We want to get better at this stuff. And what would happen if we did put aside a room for a whole week and filled it with creativity and just let people go with it? As people sign up for an hour every day, hour slots. But it
was quite transformational for our little church, wasn't it?
It was, and then the thing was we continued to do it. So we didn't continue month after month or anything, but it was like, okay, this week is really important for us to spend a week in prayer as a church, and we really get to, as a leadership, it's like I get to hear like what God is saying to the whole church out of that space. You step back into that room at the end of the week, like, wow, now I know what we should be doing. It's quite useful. But then that flows into periods like it's breathing in, breathing out, right? You don't spend your whole time in the prayer room. You get to the prayer room, get the heart of God in the prayer room, and take that out onto the streets. Yeah,
that was a key kind of phrase that we learned, something we learned, wasn't it? About you pray, and whether it's a prayer room or in your home or wherever, walking, but then you go out into the streets and be the prayer. So you can also be the answer to the prayer that you're praying.
And I guess that season of prayer did lead us into this thing that you were kind of alluding to. That was like our kind of big deep breath in the prayer room expelled us out, and we spent 5 years living in a camper van, traveling around Europe, kind of spending time with churches and ministries and stuff. And that was with 24/7 prayer, but it was because we'd been in a prayer room, got changed by the heart of God in that place of prayer. And there was a moment, wasn't there, when I'd been at a 24/7 meeting somewhere in London where, like, I don't think I've ever had it this clearly. We were worshipping, and I found myself on my knees crying, like just a complete mess, face down on the floor. Somebody was saying that you say you're living for me, but don't you mean you're living for your job? You say you're living for me, but don't you mean you're living for your church or for your career, for your house, for your kid? And every one of those, I was like, yes, God, I'm sorry, that's true, it's true. And at the end of that messy time on the floor, I felt and I saw in my mind Jesus coming to me and just saying, come and follow me, come and follow me. And then he turned and went. Because when Jesus calls you, it kind of just demands a response, and you get to choose, do I want to follow him or not? And that led us into this period of discernment, which kind of took a year or so. Or no, it took 6 months, where we both gave up our jobs, sold our house, sold everything we owned, bought a crappy 1982 camper van, and ended up spending 5 years in Europe. The biggest prayer we prayed on that, right? We'd done 6 months of Spanish lessons before we left because we thought we might go to Spain. But the joke of it is we got to Calais and we prayed and we turned left and we ended up in Eastern Europe and spent 5 years traveling around Macedonia.
Never got to Spain.
And we never got to Spain. A waste of lessons. But yeah, that involved Ramsdorf. And
yeah, but I think that season taught us lots of different ways to pray. We spent a lot of time going to visit small groups of people who'd been doing prayer rooms all over Europe and encouraging them, but also visiting their prayer rooms, hearing their stories and learning different ways to pray. We also went on pilgrimage tours of, followed some of the Kirill method and all these different types of pilgrims that we followed their journeys, didn't we, which had some interesting results.
Did. I wrote a book as well.
You did write a book. I wasn't going to say that, but 99p on Amazon if you want to find it.
Yeah, probably is now. Yeah, you're right. What's next?
You were going to say something about the trip, I think. Then we're nearly done.
What was I going to say?
Were you going to say about the? Well, I'll tell a story then. One of the.
And then we'll shut up.
One of the things that one of the particular prayer times I really enjoyed. We were with a YWAM group. Very similar to what you've just done, Beth. But this group went to Eastern Europe, and we became part of, for some reason, helping to take them around Eastern Europe for a week or 2 weeks, maybe. And so we tried to introduce them to lots of different ways of praying. And one of the opportunities we had, we ended up, and you might have to help me here, on the junction between 3 countries, Poland, Germany,
it's a border, not a junction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a junction because it was 3. Poland, Germany, and Czech Republic. And there was a little river and an island and things, so we got everybody spread out. We had different people in the different countries, and we prayed. We prayed for those countries, we prayed for unity, but there was something really powerful about being somewhere, standing on particular soil and praying with a group of people we didn't know very well. And I think they found that powerful as well, didn't they?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And did stuff like crossing borders and praying around these border towns, what was Czech Republic, where it was just horrible places of just trafficking and prostitution and drugs and gambling, and that was some really powerful times. Huh? Is that where it is? Right. We'll chat later. Yeah. It's a beautiful place, but it's one of those where it's like, I think you even find it in this country where you've got new towns that spring up. This place wasn't a town, right? And it then people came to build a new town, and there's just no rootedness to it. There's no kind of depth, which is partly spiritual. Yeah.
So the last question Mike had for us is, what are you doing tomorrow, and how is that prayer going to impact that? How is that going to look like in prayer?
Tomorrow I've got a 24/7 prayer board meeting, so I'll be at that. So we'll be praying, I promise, down at Waverley Abbey, which is kind of Lectio headquarters, I guess. And then I go to Nigeria in the evening for another board meeting, which will be a lot. Please pray for that. Nigeria, the north of Nigeria is in a real, a real mess. So please pray for that. But yeah, if I couldn't do my job without prayer, and I'm sure that's the same for everyone, right? It doesn't matter what job you do, I couldn't do it without prayer. And just some of these situations, just knowing and it's the same for everyone. God, give me the words to say. Like, what does this person need to hear from you today?
Yeah. Great.
What are you doing tomorrow?
Well, I'm going to be. I was thinking about wonderful Vicky over there. I've begun doing a 15-minute walk just around my area, linking it to the Arise prayer for March around your area. So just 15 minutes up the hills, because then it's also good for me physically as well as spiritually, and just praying for my area. So I'm going to do that tomorrow at some point.
Great. Enjoy the sunshine.
There you go.
Thanks, Mike.